This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into SportsDay Insider, presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pal, Evan Grant. Hello, Evan. How are you?
I'm fine, Kevin. How are you?
I'm fine. You've got your announcer's voice on this morning. What's up with that?
I don't know. It just seemed to have come on me, and right behind me, look at this brand new living room set.
Evan, you're really taking people back now.
I know.
Taking them back when they don't want to go.
I don't know why I woke up with announcer's voice this morning, Kevin, but I kind of like the tone of my voice. It's very silvery and lovely. How are you?
I'm great. I wouldn't say I was silvery and lovely, but I'm great. Yeah. And I think I got a little something maybe from the last time we played golf, a little lasting reminder of it.
What was that, a blister?
Well, besides the blister, I got some kind of a rash on my upper right shoulder. We can't figure out. I've been to the city doc and I've been to the emergency room, which was a miracle. Went to the emergency room on the 4th of July and was in and out of there in about 12 minutes. How about that?
Well, you got in there before the rash of, no pun intended, before the rush, I should say, of
rashes.
People who mishandled their fireworks.
Yes, as any of us who have watched the pit know, the worst time of year for the emergency room is the 4th of July.
Yes.
But anyway,
so you've got a little rash there, Kevin.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much disappearing now. But it was one of those things that made you a little nervous. Like, what the heck is this?
Well, good. You can pick up a new rash on Friday.
Like new rash because we're having round 2 on Friday. That'll be good.
People are very excited about that,
especially the people out of Stevens Park. Because I'm leaving golf balls all over the place. Any of the ball hawkers that might be out there. Oh, and here was the other thing that I said to so when I was going to the emergency room, she said, well, have you been out in anywhere? And I said, well, it's my backyard. And I play some golf. And the woman said, but you're playing golf. You wouldn't be out in the trees or anything or shrubs. And I said, the way I play golf, I am. So,
Kevin, you and the doctors were bonding thanks to your incredible sense of humor.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, well, Evan, let's talk about what's going on here. On Monday, Dusty May was made available to local media outlets. I guess they did it for those who didn't get to go to the introductory press conference, but it was a good thing because I got to have a little one-on-one time with him. Didn't know him at all. Obviously, when he was at Florida Atlantic or Michigan. Just knew the reputation of a really bright guy, known as a kind of a team builder and a father type figure. And he reminds me of a guy that I went to elementary school with. He even wears it when he's, not in a really big time public setting. He even wears the same kind of glasses that guy wore in the 3rd grade in 1965, So he kind of has that little studious look to him. He's obviously very bright, but and also very personable guy, easy to laugh, have a good time. So I'm on the whole, on the up and up with the pick of him as a head coach. One of the things the thing that I concentrated on when I wrote my column about today was that, for the last 12 or 15 years, he's always gone over to Europe for a week or so just to watch, European basketball. And back in the day, that's not really doing him a lot of good as a college basketball coach. You do get foreign players, but he wasn't doing it for the recruiting so much as he just likes the way they play basketball.
Sure.
And he said, sometimes he said, people confuse that by meaning that, there are more skilled players in Europe than there are here. And as he pointed out, he said, look, American players are better shooters. They're better ball handlers. He said, but the guys over there are all about team. I think we see a trend developing here. Their first pick was Morez Johnson Jr., who played for him, obviously, at Michigan, a very good player. But there was some feeling that Morez might have been the 3rd best of the players at Michigan last year, or at least the outside perception was that the Adai Mara, the 7'3" center from Spain, might have been the first, guy to go, and he was indeed picked by Oklahoma City, and that ought to make people nervous when Oklahoma City likes somebody. That tells you that this guy might be a real player, and he offers a lot of really great things. Among them, the fact that he's 7'3" and somebody who maybe go up against Victor Wembanyama of the Spurs. Not to say that he's the answer to Wemby, but at least it's somebody you could put out there against him. Or Axel, Lindenborg, who also a very good player, very good. All three of these guys were transfers at Michigan last year. He made all three of them into lottery picks. They were not considered lottery picks going into last year. So you have to like what he did with those players. But the interesting thing to me was that, I was intrigued by Mara at the very last and thought that maybe that might be a guy they'd go for if there were not a guard available that they could get. And as it turned out, there was a guard, Braden Burries, who's pretty good from Arizona State, but probably not a high upside on him, but a nice player. I mean, he may turn out to be terrific, but it was considered kind of a nice player. And they took Morez Johnson. And I asked Dusty yesterday, was he just the safest pick of the three guys? And he said, yeah, he was. And I said, well, because he's younger than the other two. He's also a big body, a guy who sets hard screens, a guy who, takes care of his teammates, a guy who plays, defense all around the floor. In other words, a team player. That's what they went out and got with their first pick. And it just seems to me that, and then, of course, they went out in the draft and they made three acquisitions in which they got, or not all of them were draft picks, but they were guys they ended up with on draft day or through other trades. Three European players, one from Russia, one a Turkish who plays for a Turkish club, and then also, of course, Sergio De La Rey, the kind of a combo guard from Spain. So I think we're seeing a trend developing here of what Dusty May wants, what Masai Ujiri wants. They want guys who are team players, guys who are going to buy into that concept. And not to say that the Mavericks didn't have some of those. I think they do. PJ Washington in particular. But I do think that we can see what they're trying to build. Specifically, that's what everyone would say Cooper Flagg is, team player, right? Plays both ways.
Well, I think this is, I hate to say it this way, but I think this is becoming something of a trend in some professional sports. What's new is team. Chris Young says this all the time. It is one of his favorite mantras that it's not the best team that wins, it's the team that plays the best. And in an era where there is more and more specialization, where baseball players, basketball players have their own guys that they go to all the time for stuff, I think there is this lost element of, it's not the guys who make you the best player who help you win games necessarily. It's the guys around you. It's your teammates. And when you're invested in them and what you are trying to accomplish, I think that's when you reach your highest heights. And I think we're having a little bit of an inflection moment, if you may. That's what general managers and guys who operate organizations are starting to look for is, I want a guy who's going to be invested in my team. I want a guy who's going to be invested in the program, not just in himself and being the best player he can be, but in being the best teammate he can be. It's a big talking point for Skip Schumacher. Obviously, I haven't been around Dusty May, but I think that this is something that is kind of permeating multiple professional sports at this point.
Yeah, and why not, right? Because
and especially Kevin, I'm sorry, just the last point on that is particularly with college basketball and with college football. When you've got guys who are in a program for 1 year and out, they aren't as invested in their teammates, they aren't as invested in the system, and so they've grown with that, right? That's how they've grown up, and so I think that yeah, there is this kind of emphasis towards, let's invest in the team, not just in the player.
Yeah. Well, when you get these types of players, too, the money you're having to pay now and the way contracts work, you got to make sure that everybody's bought into this, right? Because you can't simply with the money involved, you can't make mistakes. You can't
Nope.
make budget mistakes. It's just disastrous. I can remember back when Juan Gonzalez with the Rangers, and he was the highest paid Ranger, right, at one point, and performance on the field, rightfully so. But Juan was not really the kind of guy you wanted to pay a lot of money to. He just was not a leader. Had a lot of issues. There was just a lot of immaturity with Juan, and that's always a dangerous thing when that is your highest paid player. It seems to me what you want to have in that guy is looking at, there are other players like on the Rangers. Michael Young would have been a perfect example of that. You would hope that if his play reflected that, a guy with his kind of character was your highest paid player.
Sure.
All right, let's move over since we're talking about the Rangers now. So, Evan, a couple of things here. As Sean McFarland wrote the other day, Kumar Rockers made the last start of that series against the Tigers, which was a disappointing series after playing so well. They were, they were kind of off the charts the way they were playing for a little while there. Lost 2 of 3 to the Tigers, and in that game, he talked about the fact that it just seemed like they just ran out of gas, which I think probably is an appropriate explanation for that after kind of emotional high of what they were doing. I think the one thing that bugged me about that Rocker start, which was kind of reflects a little bit of everything that he has been with the Rangers so far. Started out pretty well and then just kind of ran out of gas in the 5th. But the real problem for me was not fielding his position once again. And it just seems like to me with Rocker, when things aren't going well, it's kind of like, I'm not going to do this. His explanation for not getting over to cover first or to getting over to get the ground ball was kind of in no man's land there. It's like, well, really, there's no such thing as no man's land in the infield. It's always somebody's ball over here to cover or at least make an effort. You certainly don't give up on the play like he did.
Yeah, I honestly, I did not see Sunday's game. It was Gina's birthday, so we spent the day celebrating her.
Happy birthday, Gina.
But I will pass that along. But here's my feeling on Kumar Rocker is he's just not very instinctive. I think he's worked hard on getting over to first base better after he, learned the hard way against Tampa Bay last year. And I think he's done a better job of that. I don't know that he's very instinctive on these elements of rounding out your complete game as a pitcher, which amounts to fielding and controlling the running game and things like that. And again, you go back and look at his time in the minor leagues, and it was very, very limited. And there wasn't a whole lot of time to put an emphasis on, here's how we're going to stop the running game. Here's how we're going to do this. It was all about, let's get you up, let's get your innings, let's get you, make sure we work on your pitches, and you get to the big leagues. And so what you've got here is a player who's a little bit unpolished. I also think that, this is a guy right now that I just don't think is capable of going much more than 5 innings because he only has really one pitch. He's got that slider that's really, really good, but you can only show that to hitters so often. And so you start to, the second time through, they start to foul it off. And so your pitch count gets up. You don't have anything to get him out the third time, and so batters start to have more success. And I think he had 85 pitches in the 5th inning when he was removed. He throws too many pitches. So the Rangers, there's refinement that still has to go on with Kumar, and that's a byproduct of how fast they moved him up, and that's what they're going to have to live with unless they're in a position where they say this is not working, it's not acceptable. And I think we've kind of passed that point with Kumar at this point. I think he's going to have to learn up here in the big leagues.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no question.
And I do. I mean, to your point, right? I think that there are still continual learning moments for him, and I think Sunday was one of those. But I was encouraged by how much more energy and intensity he puts into getting to first base when it's his time to cover, and he had to learn the hard way. So I guess my feeling is that teach him and he'll learn, but he doesn't have the same baseball instincts that a guy who spent a longer time in the minor leagues, kind of being instructed has.
I think that's a very nice way to put all that. I still think the deal is you're taught as a pitcher, ball right side, turn, run to first base. It's just, It should be an instinct.
It should be, yeah.
He hasn't pitched in the minor leagues very long. He pitched in college, and that's the equivalent of at least lower level, professional baseball. He just needs to be better.
I'm not trying to make excuses for Kamara. I'm just trying to give reasoning for why.
Yeah, I get it. I just think that sometimes he just doesn't take it serious enough. It just doesn't leap front of mind. It's just the same thing as I was our old. You didn't know Chris Worthington. He was one of my first. I guess he was my first editor when I came to the morning news. And he was a big baseball guy. He was a bullpen catcher at USC, and he loves baseball. So we went out and watched the Rangers play last Thursday. He'd come through town, and we were just talking. And I said, it just blows me away in baseball that. For all the things that have been done and all the things we know about baseball and all the numbers that are crunched in it now, that there's, we talked about bunting, and about how guys bunting. I'm not talking about bunting to sacrifice. I'm talking about bunting for base hits. When guys have such low, on base percentages now, and you've got guys in the shifts that they're in, why guys don't bunt. And I said, it's not a question of why they won't, it's they can't. They don't know how to bunt. And with as much time that's spent in baseball and as much time as these guys have played baseball, somewhere along the line, someone should have taught them, hey, let's just go over this stuff and see what make sure that you're equipped to do everything you need to do, which includes after you throw that pitch, the ball's hit to your left, run over and cover first base.
I go back to Chris Woodward when he was manager here, and the most shocking answer I think I ever got from a manager about a question was when the Rangers were awful fielders at the pitching position, and I asked him about it, and he said he wasn't that concerned about it because it was about getting outs, it was about throwing strikes, and that those plays were a very small percentage. And I was just really, I'm paraphrasing here, and I don't want to make this too much of an indictment on Woody, but it was an answer that kind of shrugged off the fielding element, and I do think that's been the modern game in a lot of ways, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just think that there has not been the same level of instruction or the same level of accountability for poor defensive work at pitcher, or really at almost any position except for those in the middle of the diamond.
Yeah, let me go over another guy, and I brought him up before. Doing a little research on Luis Ariza, my favorite non-Ranger infielder, and what has he done this year? He is, by every metric, he's improved himself more than any other infielder in baseball. Probably went from a below average second baseman to a little bit above average. It's certainly a league average at the very least. And why do they credit him for doing that? Because Ron Washington is his infield coach with the Giants. And because Ron Washington simply takes his guys out there and hits them ground ball after ground ball after ground ball.
Yeah.
And just works with these guys. And he's obviously working on their footwork too. But we all know the work that Ron has done with players, right? But it's not, and I don't want to take anything away from Ron Washington's, what he's telling these guys. What it simply is we're going to get out here and work. It's like what Ben Hogan said about golf. The answer is in the dirt. And meaning that you get out there and you pound ball after ball after ball after ball. And that's how you get better.
I think it's also in the messaging, right? Wash has this innate instinct to praise when he needs to and to light a fire when he needs to. That is maybe his greatest attribute. And that's what makes him a great communicator and makes it possible for his message to get through. But yeah, it is about going out and doing the work, having somebody who's invested with you in the work. Ron Washington is 72 years old right now. He's been through a quadruple bypass surgery, and he is out there and he works every day with those guys. And sweats and hits ground ball after ground ball. And somebody who's willing to do that with you just like Perry Hill has always been, and he's a legendary infield coach. Those guys are, they have a way of getting their message through hard work.
Yeah.
It's not just going through the motions.
It's no question about it. It's like I see, I've always felt this way about baseball, that unless you're just really limited, everybody should be at least a decent fielder. Everybody. Because if you work enough, if you take enough fly balls, you take enough ground balls, you can be a perfunctory player. It's just a question of how much work you're willing to put in on it. And a guy who's a tremendous hitter, they're less inclined to put in that kind of work because I'm a hitter. I don't need to do this, and I can get by with it. And usually, if you're a really great hitter, you're probably a pretty good athlete, and you could be a good defensive player. It used to be back in the day, guys would, when I was growing up watching baseball, like in Houston, Roger Metzger was a shortstop, couldn't hit a lick, but he was a tremendous fielder. And that was the kind of shortstops you saw all across baseball. None of them could hit, but they could all field their positions really well. Well, then, Cal Ripken comes along, and that just completely changes the complexion of the position and what you expect of it. And now we're wanting to have hitters, which is great. And it certainly does probably help you more in the long run. But there's just been a kind of a move away from feeling like you have to play that kind of defense. And I just, it's disheartening to me because when you're losing games because you're making bad plays in the field, I know that Diaz has done a really nice job for the Rangers at catcher this year. He's really given them some hitting. But, there's a ball in the dirt. He comes up, instead of having his glove down on the ground as he comes up, he's got the gloves, 5 inches off the ground, ball skips right through, goes to the backstop, run scores. It's like the whole point of you getting up here is put your glove on the ground and stop the ball. The whole point of that, you cannot let that ball go between your legs, And it's stuff like that that just bugs me. It's like if you get outclassed by somebody because they're just simply better athletes, better hitters, whatever, that's okay. But when you get beat because you're just not feeling your position, that's a bad look.
All right. Well, I'm going to just say this. Can we move on to something besides Kumar Rocker's fielding?
Well, I brought up Diaz as well, so we can move on. So let's talk about the Rangers now at this point. We're getting dangerously close to the trade deadline now. Dangerously close. It's like
we're within a month.
Danger is involved here. So they had a great run there. They get themselves back in first place, and then they kind of fade against the Tigers. And we'll see where they pick up now as we're taping this on Tuesday. But let me ask you this: do you still feel like this team is on the upswing? Do you feel like it's enough to convince Ray Davis to make an investment at this point?
I think that there's got to be a little bit more definition to this club than the past 2 years. Last year they were 5 games over 500 at the deadline, but the division was a little bit better as a whole. This year the division is a little bit worse, and they're right at 500 right now. I don't know how you describe that definition. We are having Chris Jung on the Rangers podcast this week, and that is one of the things that I want to ask him about is, what do you have to see and where do you have to be in order to really invest? I do think that Ray Davis will make some money available if there is a legitimate shot to win the division. If the Rangers are simply chasing the third wild card, I don't think he's going to be moved towards anything insignificant. The wild card on all this is Chris Jung can be incredibly persuasive, and he has a great belief in his team, and he's an extreme competitor, and he can go and make a case. I don't think the Rangers are going to go out and be able to get any real needle moving names, but I do think that they can help their bullpen. I don't know what it would take to get Garrett Whitlock, but that's a name that I really like. I think they could use a right-handed hitting center fielder. And there's a couple of guys out there that aren't going to light up anybody's, they aren't going to light anybody's real attention span up, but there are some guys that could help.
Well, give us a name or two there. Is there somebody from the Giants?
Well, I mean, I like Harrison Bader some, who's coming
He's
back
not
from an
hitting this
injury.
year. Yeah,
What's that?
he's not hitting this year though. And I like Harrison Bader too, but he's not. But the Giants have another outfielder, do they not? That has been hitting well. I'm thinking about. I read a Jeff Passan article. It seemed like to me he had guys.
The guys I've heard about are Lane Thomas and Bader as potential center field options. The Giants obviously are going to be a seller, and they've got Arias to sell for sure. I don't know that there is. Looking at the Giants roster right now, and I think that Bader is the guy that might potentially best fit. I've asked about a couple other guys who I haven't really heard much one way or another on. I think but I think the most important part here, Kevin, is look, the Rangers are back to 45-45 as we record this. They're a game and a half out in the American League West. They're going to have a big 4-game series with Seattle the week before the deadline here in Arlington. And I think that, it's going to take right up until then to determine which direction this club goes in. If they're going to continue to play right around 500 and then they go into that Seattle series and they win, then maybe that changes the motivation. But if they go into that Seattle series and split or lose 3 out of 4, I think that also might change the direction rather drastically in the other direction. The problem now is, at one point in time, the thought was, okay, maybe if the season doesn't go right, you sell and you'd have some nice pieces to sell. Well, Corey Seager is not very sellable if you're below 500 because he's been on the IL 3 times. And now he's a guy that's 32 going on 33 with what may be a problematic bat. On top of all of that, you would certainly have DeGrom available to trade. I think you'd have to pry Jacob DeGrom out of Chris Young's cold dead arms.
Wow.
But he loves Jacob DeGrom. Jacob DeGrom is, a Hall of Fame pitcher, and that's going to be hard for him to separate from. But the Rangers may have to make decisions like that depending on what happens here. And look, they've got 3 games against the Angels coming up this week. They have the Astros at home. They play 3, 6, 9, 13 of their next 16 games at home. It is time to go.
Yeah,
it is time to go. They 13 of 16, and the Rangers have not played well at home this year. They are, I think, 20-20 at home as we sit here.
Yeah, they're 500 at home and on the road.
Yeah. So they need to 500 on the road is great. They need to be better at home. They just they haven't put together any kind of home field advantage, and now is the time to do it. You've got a steady situation, a steady stretch of home games. If you can't do it, then I think your answers are made for you.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Seattle series in particular. It really, to me, it almost doesn't matter how unless you just really put on a run before that. You lose 3 out of 4 Seattle. I think that's like boom, you're dead.
I said about a week ago that when the Rangers had 32 games left to the deadline, they needed to go 20-12, and since that time they've lost 3. So they've got 9 max that they could lose the rest of the way before they have to. I think before they have to start selling.
And how many games is that? 9 games, and how many left?
They've got 16, 19, 22 games left.
22 games, so that's a good.
So they've got to go 19-9. No.
Yeah. 13-9.
13-9.
Yeah.
Yeah, 13-9.
Well, that shouldn't be hard to do. 13-9, that should be a breeze,
especially when you're at home the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so they've got to do that. At this point, for me, the problem for the Rangers is I think they need a starter. I think they need a position player, an outfielder. They need a reliever. That's three pretty big things to get. It doesn't mean you're getting, as you mentioned up top, they don't have to be top of the line players. You don't have to be. I don't know. I'm trying to think of somebody who might be available at this point that would be considered that. They're not going to go out and get a huge piece, but they need at least a significant player in each one of those areas. Somebody who can do a little something. And the rotation. I'm really just talking about somebody for the back end because at this point, and we were talking about Rocker earlier, and as you said, he can't get through the fifth inning anymore. There's a lot of fifth starters who really can't do that. But I'm just wondering if he's just not better served going to the bullpen here. And of course, if the Rangers were to get to the playoffs, that's what he would be. But I just wondered if at some point, if you could come up with a serviceable fifth starter, that you just don't go ahead and move Rocker to the bullpen.
Well, you may have Jordan Montgomery ready before the end of July. You may have Cody Bradford ready another 2 weeks after that. And Jack Leiter, might be ready. He was on his feet for quicker than I thought he would be. And so I don't know when the first, maybe the 1st of September would be, no, maybe late August would be reasonable to think he could be back. And so, you get to September and maybe you have a lot of movement, that's not necessarily permanent, but is a temporary fix. And I think the Rangers will look at all of that. I think they will. I just think that for the long term, I think they're going to continue to consider Kumar Rocker a starting pitcher in the long view.
Yeah, sure.
Until there's no possibility left that he can do that.
Well, I mean, there's no sweat in doing it now, right? See if he can figure things out. You're kind of. It's not like he's killing them, so that's fine to leave him there. But when it comes right down to it, yes, when Montgomery's ready, when Cody Bradford's ready, if those guys are showing that they got something, then to me it's like if these guys are pitching better than you, you're down, they're up. All right, let me ask you about this because we should talk about this. So the Rangers have an all-star. One all-star.
Yeah, thanks for burying the lead.
We did bury the lead in that.
The best story of the year, you're finally getting around to Jacob Latz.
Yeah. Would anybody say, because the two Jakes, can we say that? An old Jack Nicholson Chinatown reference?
No, I've called it Jake and Bake a couple times. I've called it Jake Squared.
At least mine has some precedent in cinema, so that's better.
Yes, your typical. I was on your favorite channel the other day, by the way.
What was that? TMC?
Yes.
TCM?
Yes.
For classic movies. Yeah. You don't always watch.
I was singing a musical on July 4th, as I always do.
Good for you. Well, let's talk
about
It's hot
as hell in Philadelphia.
That's enough. Wow.
Someone open up a window. God, I love 1776.
Yeah, sure. Who doesn't? So Jake Latz this year, I can remember standing in outside a clubhouse in spring training with you and Jake Latz, and we're talking about things, and I'm just feeling bad for him at that point because I'm thinking that, the way he pitched last year, I thought this guy deserves a roster spot. I mean, not a roster spot. He deserves a rotation spot. He was really good last year. He struggled a little bit, the second time through, but he was really good. And he just standing out there in the hallway, I think he could sense I'm blowing this. I'm not gonna be able to get a rotation spot because I'm losing velocity, the second time through the lineup. And so I was thinking, I just hate that this is not going to work out for him. He's a good kid. He played, worked hard, did a good job last year. And then what ends up happening, they put him in the bullpen, and he ends up being the best closer in baseball.
Yeah, he's just and I don't say this easily because look, we don't root for guys or we don't root for teams, but he is an easy guy to root for because he hasn't let anything deter him. And I think he's looked at all of his situations as growth moments. You go back to the troubles he had in college at LSU staying healthy, the trouble he had at Kent State after he transferred getting eligible, the injuries he went through, being called up to the majors probably at a time when he shouldn't have during 21, and just the continual progress he's made and the undeterred approach he's taken to all of this. And I felt the same way as you. I thought Jacob Latz, based on last year, based on spring training, I thought he deserved the 5th spot in the rotation. And I was really curious as to how it was going to impact him to be moved to the bullpen. And look, at that point in time, it wasn't clear that he was going to pitch the highest leverage innings. And so I didn't know what that role would look like. But he has taken to everything that's been put in front of him and really excelled. And to the point, and I can't stress it enough, this is a guy with 9 1+ inning saves this year. He leads the majors in that. I don't think it's a thing that you want to ramp up to 20 games, but he is a unique weapon. He's not just a closer. He is a unique closer. And the Rangers have used him as a very efficient multi-inning closer, and he's aware of that. You know, when he goes out there and he knows he's got to get outs, more than 3 outs, he's even more efficient than he usually is. So he has by far and away been, for me, the best story on this team this year. He's, you know, when we talk about the whole team element, I think he exemplifies that all right, this is the role given to him. This is how he can help this team win. He's going to do everything he can to make that happen.
Yeah, no question about that. And, you know, what it goes back to is a little bit of, you know, I can remember when, I'm old enough to remember before there were closers, you know, and when people came up with it, there was a little bit of a bogus nature to it always with me, because lots of times when you're coming in as the closer, you know, it's clean, right? You come in the 9th inning, there's nothing here, and you got room to screw up if you need to, and then you get yourself out of it. Well, he's coming in a situation where you can't do that. You know, he's coming in the 8th inning many times, and you know, they don't always. And what I like is they use him in the most high leverage situations. So these are very valuable saves. There's no questioning the value of these saves, or I should say, the quality of the save. It's just remarkable what he's been able to do. And as we just noted, the way that he's making this happen, though, is he's not throwing very many pitches. It's not like he's going out there and throwing 25 or 30 pitches or 40 pitches, you know. He's doing it on 15, 18 pitches, getting, you know, four outs. So to be able to do that, and then obviously, and I haven't talked to him about it since then, but clearly you can tell by his body language, he obviously likes it. You know, he likes the role that he has there. So I'd like for you to speak to that a little bit. When you've talked to Jake, how has he adjusted to this new role?
I think, again, just as I said, I mean, I think he has taken this role and said, how can I best contribute to this team? And I do think he likes the idea. He's certainly grown to like the idea more than I think he thought he would, of coming into those high leverage situations where he can really make an immediate difference. And that's always the appeal to guys who end up as closers, is, you know, they can go in and go all out. I think he, you know, different than some other guys, because he does have a starter's kind of repertoire. He can come in, and it's not just, let me just blow heat by you. It is, I can come in and I can use all my pitches, but I'm not setting guys up. I'm going after them, and I can control my pitches, and I can go after them with all of them. And so he's using his starter's repertoire in these high leverage situations. And to your point, Kevin, I mean, he's averaging 15 pitches an inning. That's exemplary for a starting pitcher, much less a reliever. And so he comes at it from a starter's approach too. Like, how can I make myself most available? Well, here's how, you know, limit my pitches. And it's a great story. You know, the obvious comparison is the great Jeff Zimmerman season of 1998 or 99. Hopefully it's a longer lasting story than Jeff Zimmerman was.
I hope so. That sounds like a cautionary tale to me.
I don't think he pronates his arm quite as much as Zim did with his slider. I think Zim walks around now with his arm kind of turned outside.
Dug straight out.
But I do think that Latz, he's just a guy who he's very thoughtful, and I think he has taken stock of everything that's happened in his baseball career, and hasn't let himself been deterred from the ultimate goal, and just takes all these experiences and puts them into this bag that allows him to continue to grow. That's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah, it's terrific. And of course, that's what makes it even better is that they went into the season without a closer. Not only did you find one within the organization, which was almost like, no way this is happening, you get an all-star. So that's what makes this season, to me, is they get to the deadline now. And we talked about this before. You got a bounce back season from Josh Jung. You got a bounce back season from Zeke Duran. You got a bounce back season from Josh Pederson. You simply cannot waste all of this, all the developments that have been made, things you could not have foreseen that you were able to do from within your system. And then on top of that, in a bad year for the American League, you cannot blow all of that. You just simply cannot.
And I mean, where this falls, I'm sorry to say it, where so much of this falls is on the inavailability of Wyatt Langford and Corey Seager, the lack of progress for Evan Carter. All three of them have spent time on the IL this year. Wyatt, when he's been healthy, the last time around at least, was crushing the ball. But Wyatt Langford has played 40 games this year. He's missed 50 of the Rangers' 90 games. Corey Seager has played 51 games. He's going to miss his 40th game of the year tonight. Evan Carter is hitting 187, and over the last 3 years is a 208 hitter with a 305 on base percentage. That's where the fault is that's where the fault's gonna lie if this team is either broken up or doesn't make the playoffs. There's no other way to put it. Guys have got to be. There's two things. Guys have got to be available and they've got to be productive. And the Rangers believe that Corey Seager and Wyatt Langford are their pillars, are their franchise players, and that starts with being available. And they haven't been.
They have not. All right. Before we get out, we should mention the World Cup play, and of course the decision that allowed Folarin Balogun to play after the red card. And then what happens the day that they find out he is going to be available? The U.S. goes out and gets smoked by Belgium 4-1. Smoked by Belgium. Doesn't it just sound bad that the United States of America is losing in a major sport to Belgium?
No, that part doesn't sound bad to me because that doesn't sound bad to me. Here's what is bad to me is I still remember the '94 World Cup that took place in the U.S. and
some of it
how
here.
bright the future of soccer, of international soccer in the U.S. seemed. And we are 32 years removed from that. And can you say that and last night I heard it, as they were writing the epitaph on Team USA again, the future for soccer is bright here. And can anybody give me demonstrable?
Yeah, there you go.
Demonstrable evidence that the U.S. soccer program, the men's program, is any better than it was 32 years ago.
Well, and here's the thing. Some of the players, including Balogun, were guys that really could be playing for other countries, right? So it's not like they're, he's a native-born American, but he grew up overseas. And so we were having dinner with a couple last night. We're watching the game when we're talking, and this guy.
Oh, thanks for the invitation.
Sure. This guy's asked, well, you were celebrating Gina's birthday.
That was Sunday. Last night we were available.
It wasn't like a 48-hour celebration?
No.
Okay.
So you want to know where we took her for her birthday?
Where'd you go?
Ficini.
Oh, how about that? We've been
Hadn't
there.
been there in a while. It's so good.
It is good. We went to I've had a senior moment here. What is the name of that
Yeah, well,
place?
nobody cares since you didn't invite
It's over
us.
there where Balls used to be in Midway and Northwest
Oh,
Iowa.
Claremont.
Claremont, yeah, very good. We love
Yeah.
Claremont. So anyway, and this guy says,
Did you have a hamburger there by any chance?
No, I've never had a hamburger. At Balls?
At Claremont?
No, I've not had their hamburger. I had
their hamburger is supposed to be very good.
Haven't had it yet. Wait a minute, I have had their ham. It is good. All right, so anyway, let me get to my point here. Is that this guy asked, why is it that soccer, we just don't ever get any better at soccer? And I said, well, look, the problem is with everybody else, in everybody else's country, soccer it's not, people want to compare the World Cup to the Super Bowl. It's not the Super Bowl to those people. It's 10 Super Bowls to those people because you only play it every 4 years, A. And B, soccer is so far ahead of every other sport in the rest of the world. So far ahead. Whereas in America, yes, football is number one, but then you got basketball after that, then you got baseball after that, and you got college football. There's just always something in front of soccer here. And so what happens is all the best athletes still gravitate to those other sports in America. And so we're not getting the best athletes to play soccer. So I'm not saying there are not great athletes out there. Of course there are. And it is better. But I just feel like, as to your point, is an excellent one. The progress that has been made over the last 30 years is incremental. We're not talking about leaps and bounds made here. There in pretty much any other sport you watch in America, except for, the establishment, but certainly let me just say in women's sports, you take women's sports and what they are now in basketball, soccer, I guess you could say that too, certainly in that sport for women. But since 1994, there's a huge improvement, much, much better in play. But in soccer, we're not going to be better than everybody else around the world because this is all they do. This is what they do.
It's not all they do, but it is the number one sport. And I look, there was no doubt to me watching the game last night that the American team had plenty of great athletes. They had speed. They played a terrible game. And I'm no soccer expert, but they played a terrible game. And I don't know if that's because they feel the pressure of doing something that no American team has ever done. Well, I guess one American team has made the quarterfinals before. Or if they're just inferior as soccer players, as team players. I don't know. But I just grow a little bit tired of hearing the same narrative during the World Cup and from soccer people that the future is bright, and yet for 30 years, we've not seen anything that really resembles a brighter future. And I know all these people will tell me, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And, it's a very difficult world out there. And the soccer, you don't understand soccer. And probably all of that is right. I don't know any other situation in which, we could invest 30 years and not make any real significant progress. Like you said, in women's sports, we have very quickly leapt to the forefront throughout the world. In other sports, I don't know that there's a fair comparison, but I just don't feel like the U.S. has made any kind of significant progress in where they stand in the world soccer rank.
Well, you could say that look, in Olympic sports, and certainly in Winter Olympic sports, where America was, pretty inferior for a long time, big gains made, right? A lot of money poured into it, big gains made. Not so much in soccer. All right, before we get out, what was your feeling about Balogun being allowed to play?
I don't want to get into politics because that's what happened is, there was politics involved. I don't quite understand the full ruling here. I don't trust FIFA in general. So I don't really have a strong feeling one way or another. I know there had been a precedent where there had been other players. I think Ronaldo at one point in time allowed to play. Do you have a strong take on this?
Well, I thought it was a bad call to begin with. And look, here's the problem for me with soccer on this stand. They act like tough guys. They say, red card. All right, look, we're reviewing this play. We didn't even call it a foul when it happened, right? But after the replay, we said, not only is this a foul, it's a red card. You're out now, and you're out the next game as well. Name me another sport where that's going to happen. That's not going to happen in the NFL. I mean, unless you just take a guy's head off. It's not happening. It's not going to happen in NBA. It's not happening anywhere.
Well, in college football, if you get an ejection, you're out for the first half of the next game.
Targeting, yes, but at least it's just the next thing. And those are things where you're hitting a guy on the head, at full speed, lowering your helmet, hitting on the head. This was not lowering the helmet and hitting the guy on the head. This was going for a ball in slow motion. It didn't look good in full speed, natural time. It just looked, incidental. So at any rate, that's the bogus part about it to me. The fact, though, that you can just decide to change the rules, that just fits right in, as you noted, with FIFA and a lot of international organizations, the IOC, all kinds of things like that, where there's influence being peddled that's not good. So at any rate, it felt, if you were upset about it, the game certainly felt like karma, to lose 4-1. You got Balogun, and you still lost 4-1. One of the worst losses in World Cup play this year. But the World Cup goes on without them, and it's been fun so far. Otherwise, everything else has been fun to watch. I'll be out there for the semifinals in a couple of weeks. So, what is
the semifinal game we'll have here? We still have the round of 8.
Well, yeah, you'll get Spain, and my guess is maybe Spain and Belgium.
Spain and Belgium, or is it Spain? I thought we'd get the winner of France, Morocco.
That's right. I think that's right. So this is going to be a good one. It'll be good.
France and Spain, France and Morocco. France and Spain, or Morocco and Spain, maybe.
I think that's correct, and probably France. France is really good. They're the favorite.
I'm putting all my marbles now on Norway. I'm going full on Norwegian.
Yeah, you're rowing out there with them.
I love my Erling Haaland.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
I would love to do the row. I would love to be in a place where I could do the row.
Do the row. All right, good for you. All right, that's absolutely going to do it. I got to get out of here. Evan's got to get out. We're going to be back next week, or at least, we'll be back next week. It's the week after that I won't be here, but I'll be back next week.
Are you back next week?
Be back next week. It's the week after that I'll be gone. So.
Okay. Well, next week we'll do a Rangers, since it'll be the All-Star break, we'll do the Rangers roundtable with you, me, and Sean. How about that?
That would be beautiful. That would be a beautiful thing. All right. So from everybody in here to everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.